Many people in Uganda do not know that the Constitution of Uganda provides for a leadership code of conduct, which is meant to regulate the way public officers are supposed to conduct themselves, particularly in acquisition of wealth, so that incidences of corruption are minimized or eliminated. So we are here today from the Inspectorate of Government to talk to the public about the Leadership Code of Conduct through this public notice, which we are communicating today, but which will also be put in the papers as a members of the Constitution of Uganda enacted this code of conduct, and its purpose is to prohibit behavior that is likely to compromise honesty, probity, impartiality, and integrity of public officers in management of public affairs, public funds, and other public property. The Code of Conduct also is intended to prohibit behavior that is likely to lead to corruption in public affairs through non-adherence to the rule of law, abuse of office, and abuse of authority. And finally, the Leadership Code of Conduct was enacted to prohibit behavior which is detrimental to public good or welfare or good governance. The Leadership Code Act prescribes penalties to be imposed for breach of the code and prescribes powers, procedures, and practices for ensuring effective enforcement. Under the provisions of the Leadership Code of Conduct, all public officers and political leaders are required to declare their income, their assets, and their liabilities to the Inspectorate of Government. Under the Act further provides that the Inspectorate of Government may verify declarations so made for their accuracy and authenticity. The Act further prescribes penalties for breach of the conduct and false declarations. Many people are known to underdeclare their wealth, to hide them behind their relatives or other proxies. That is a breach of the Act and punishable by law. So, who is eligible to declare? There are two categories. One are public officers. A public officer is defined under Article 257 of the Constitution of Uganda as a person holding or acting in any public office and earning a salary or emoluments from the consolidated fund. So, anybody who earns a salary from government is required under the law to declare their assets, liabilities. The Leadership Code Act was amended in 2021 to require all public officers, without exception, to declare their incomes and assets to the Inspector General of Government. At one time, I saw a certain teacher standing beside a hat, a word and motto hat, and saying, "This is the only asset that I have. You want me to declare my hat?" And the answer is yes. You are required to declare your hat, because after 2 years, if you have 4 hats, you will have to explain how you got the 4 hats. If the 4 hats are not commensurate with your known sources of income, that is the purpose of the Leadership Code of Conduct, so that the public can monitor the way you political leader or a specified officer is required to declare his or her income, assets, and liabilities within 3 months after taking office. That is, after being elected into office and swearing, taking oath, or after being appointed and taking oath. Thereafter, you are required, after 3 months of taking office, to declare your income, assets, and liabilities, and thereafter, every 2 years during the month of March. Therefore, leaders who last declared their wealth in 2019 should have made their most recent declarations in March 2021. And if you did not declare in March 2021, you are in breach of the Code of Conduct and liable for penalties under the Leadership Code Tribunal, unless you can adduce sufficient grounds for non-compliance. May I repeat? If you are elected or appointed as a public servant or a political leader, you are supposed to declare within 3 months from the day you take office. And if you didn't do so, you are in breach of the Code for non-compliance. On the other hand, new leaders who were elected or appointed in the previous elections of 2021 and took oath in June or July, they should have made their declarations within 3 months of assuming office. That is, not later than October 2021. And if you did not, you are already in breach of the code and liable for penalties unless you can adduce sufficient grounds. And penalties include dismissal from office. This category of leaders will make their next declaration in March 2023, and thereafter every 2 years, but in March. Another category is a public officer. A public officer who is not a leader under the Act, and the public officer, as I said, is everybody who earns a salary from government. Teachers, drivers, tea girls, because they also have access to abuse of their offices or their responsibilities. They have to declare. You know, there are incidences where an office messenger is better off than a teacher, a headmaster, because they abuse the benefits of their offices. So you are required, if you earn a salary from government, to make this declaration. And this must declare within 3 months after being appointed in that capacity. And thereafter, every 5 years. Political leaders, 2 years. Other public officers, every 5 years. So the next category will be required to make their declarations on 2026. But every new person must declare within 3 months of taking office. Public officials leaders and officers are also required to declare their exit. That's called exit declaration. All those leaders who are exiting their positions of leadership and public office 6 months after submitting their declaration are required to submit an exit declaration of their income, assets, and liabilities, so that we know that you left office, when you left office. And thereafter, because you never know, something may come up and you are censored for having illicit wealth, whereas you left office. So we need to know when you leave office. A political leader, specified officer or public officer who is appointed or elected any time after the month of March is required to submit their declaration of income, assets, and liabilities within, this is just for emphasis, 3 months upon assuming office. So, to whom are declarations submitted? Declarations of income, assets, and liabilities under the Leadership Code Act of 2002 must be made to the Inspectorate of Government, which is mandated to enforce the Leadership Code of Conduct. Now, the penalties. The Act provides for penalties for breach of the Leadership Code of Conduct. I don't want to remind people about what happened to a certain, because it was really hard, something that happened to a senior political leader, a member of parliament in 2006, who was thrown out of parliament and not allowed to contest because he had violated this code of conduct. So please take it as a very serious provision of the law. A political leader or public officer who fails without justifiable cause to submit a declaration of his or her income, assets, and liabilities to the Inspector General of Government is in breach of the code and is liable for prosecution, and penalties prescribed under the law include dismissal from public office. The Inspectorate of Government is empowered under the law, the Act, to verify such declarations that have been submitted to ensure that they are correct and truthful. The Act prescribes penalties and sanctions for false declarations. I have told you that people under-declare, but there are mechanisms within government for establishing. You may declare that you have 1 acre of land in Ruamagwa, but if I check with the Ministry of Lands, the Ministry of Lands may actually show that you have more land elsewhere which you did not declare. You may declare that you have 1 house in Irunguja, but KCCA, if I check with KCCA, they may confirm that you have actually been allowed to build 3 houses and you even completed them and got occupation permits. You may not declare that you have interest in a certain company, but the Uganda Registration Bureau will tell me that you are actually a board member or a director in a certain company. So there are mechanisms in government to find out everything that you have and even everything that your nearest relatives has If you put things under your son's name, who is 21, then we have to establish what your son does to have so much wealth. There are mechanisms in the government to verify and ascertain the truthfulness and correctness of your declarations. And false declarations are penalized under the law. This year, 1922, the Inspectorate of Government has started the exercise of verification of declarations, and we are going to start with 160 leaders whom we have identified because of their unique responsibilities in the management of public resources. And we are going to start with the top leadership of the Inspectorate of Government. We are going to lead by example and verify the declarations of the top 37 officials of the Inspectorate of Government. We shall also verify accounting officers of central government votes. We have been told that the central government has 53 votes to start with, and we are going to begin with verification of declarations of accounting officers of the 53 votes of government. We shall also choose 30 cows of districts with the biggest budgets as a start. This is just a start this financial year, but we shall move on to everybody. We shall also pick 10 town clerks of urban councils or urban local governments with the biggest budgets, and also 30 heads or accounting officer of 30 government agencies with the biggest budgets. So this year alone, between now and June, we shall have verified the assets of those 160 officers. This is not witch hunting. Nobody should think, because I've already started hearing that we said we are going to check PSCs and cows, we are witch hunting people. No, we are starting with those people because of their unique responsibilities in management of the resources. We are not witch hunting anybody. We are not suspicious of anybody. We are just operationalizing the leadership code of conduct, which was passed by Parliament. And Uganda, ladies and gentlemen, is not the only country that does this. I think all the 180 countries which the 180 countries in the world which have these provisions of the leadership code of conduct, where leaders are subjected to strict public scrutiny in the management of public affairs and in acquiring of wealth. Actually, in some countries, the ombudsman or IGG is even required to publish the wealth of some people by law. But in Uganda, we don't do that. But let it be known that what we are doing here is done in all the countries of the world, and some with even stricter provisions.
Style audit and promise to support the IG in doing that lifestyle audit. When we say we go slow, like the IGG has ably explained, there are people who run out and take the proceeds of corruption to other countries and invest it there. But we have got sufficient laws in place, like the IGG has explained. We have got the mutual legal assistance legislation, which supports us to partner with other anti-corruption agencies elsewhere to investigate those cases, to prosecute them and bring whatever it is that the proceeds of corruption taken out there. Verifications, we are beginning a roadmap for verifications. Why are we beginning now and not earlier? Previously, we were receiving declarations and declarations and declarations, but we were not empowered resource-wise to go ahead and do the verifications. And right now, someone asked about why only 166. Progressively, with availability of resources, we have come up with a roadmap to verify the 166, and this is in line with the mandate of the IG to supervise the enforcement of the Leadership Code under that Article 234 of the Constitution. And the purpose of conducting verification is to establish whether the income, assets, and liabilities declared by the leader or public officer are commensurate with his well-known sources of income. So leaders who will be verified will receive a notification signed by the IGG or the deputies on the commencement of the verification. So in terms of statistics, in 2021, the Inspectorate of Government planned to receive 25,000 declarations from leaders and 333,000 declarations from public officers who are not specified leaders under the second schedule of the Leadership Code Act. We can say, however, that we have received submissions of declarations from 23,080 leaders. This is 92% compliant, and 182,187 public officers. This is 55% compliant. So it's important to note, however, that 285,079 public officers have so far been uploaded on our system for declarations. So a total of 1,920 leaders and 1,150,813 public officers are yet to submit their declarations of income, assets, and liabilities. So the Inspectorate has commenced already investigations. We are already investigating to establish why they did not declare their assets within the stipulated period of time. We have written to them. We have received some responses. So once the investigations are concluded, then they are found to have breached the code, they will be prosecuted before the law.